Welcome into Duval Daily, presented by GenJag.com. I'm Jordan DeLuga. Thanks so much for tuning in here on Tuesday, January 7th. Right now, getting into my top takeaways from what was a pretty awkward at times press conference with Shad and Jaguars general manager Trent Baalke yesterday. Top takeaways from that. Again, I felt like it was pretty awkward. Shad having to answer some questions, some pretty maybe difficult questions about Trent Baalke on the same press conference that Trent Baalke's just kind of sitting there. And then obviously Baalke answered some questions as well. We'll dive into it. Really appreciate y'all tuning in. If you enjoy the content, please like and subscribe. So my biggest question is Trent Baalke's job like actually safe? Obviously for now they're moving forward with Trent Baalke, but Shad Khan, he was asked some questions basically asking like if a head coach wanted to change things within the organization, if a head coach that he wanted to hire wanted to change things within the organization, would he be open to that? And of course, those answering or asking the question were trying to figure out like, if you're interviewing a head coach and they would rather work with someone else's general manager, would Shad Khan potentially be open to doing that? And I thought his answers were certainly interesting. I thought that he basically said his response would be, how would you improve it, the football organization? And if it was credible, you want to do it. How does the structure work? I want to make sure that this isn't about ego or power or something more sinister, quite frankly. There have been some of those elements that I have found in my experience in the NFL. If it's a legit effort to get better, then everything should be on the table. And that was in response to if the new head coach wanted to restructure the front office. I don't think he directly said, Shad Khan, I don't think he directly said that Trent Baalke's job could be in jeopardy if the head coach didn't want to work with him necessarily. But it's interesting. He said if there's credibility to what the head coach wants to do, then that has to be on the table. So I don't know. I really don't know if his job is actually safe. I just find it interesting that Shad Khan would say that instead of just, he didn't downright say Trent Baalke's job is safe. He didn't downright say we're not moving on from Trent Baalke at all when asked these questions. He kind of left it open. Would he potentially acquiesce to a coach wanting to bring in their own general manager? Trent Baalke was also asked about the whole retirement thing, and he said that, no, that's not on the table. There was reports last year that he was considering retirement. He said that's not on the table. Another interesting thing I thought, I actually liked a lot the fact that Shad Khan, he talked a little bit of football. My guess is someone just told him what to say in response to some of these questions, because I don't think he really is a ball knower. Could be wrong, but that's just my opinion on the matter. He said that the Jaguars offense has been too predictable. It's been the most predictable offense in the NFL. And guess what? He is not wrong. He's 100% right when it comes to the predictability of the Jaguars offense over the last couple years. They're close to the bottom of the league in motion rate. They don't do a lot to try to confuse defenses. They don't do a lot to try to support the quarterback. Yeah, I mean, their offense is far too predictable. Or it was. So they're going to try to bring in someone to run the offense that has a more modern mindset when it comes to coaching offenses. And he also said in trying to improve on defense, they actually became the worst defense in the league, which he didn't offer any insight into how to get better on that side of the ball, but he said that's what they've got to do. But hearing him say something like, we had the most predictable offense in the league, I've never heard Shad Khan say something like that. And again, I don't think that he came up with that on his own. I think that someone told him that. But whoever told him that, whether it was Trent Baalke or his son or somebody else, he was absolutely right. So the Jaguars have to get less predictable on offense. And I've been talking about that for years, last couple years. They've got to be less predictable. So if they're able to accomplish these goals that Shad Khan has talked about in terms of getting less predictable on offense and finding some improvement on defense, yeah, I think that the Jaguars can move in the right direction. Talking about Shad Khan's definition of success, I asked him about that towards the end of the press conference. He said the definition of success within the organization is to shoot for the playoffs every year. Shoot for the playoffs as a definition of success, to me, there could have been a lot better answers. If you wanted to say, look, the goal at the beginning of the season is to make the playoffs, so we give ourselves a chance to compete for the title every year, I think that would have been a more reasonable answer, a realistic answer. And I know some that have defended that answer have said, well, this is based more in realism than, yeah, but if you're setting the precedent from the top down, from the ownership down, that the goal is to be shooting for the playoffs, that is not good enough, in my opinion. If from the top down, owner to general manager and head coach, to front office, to coaching staff, to everybody in that building is just to be good enough to shoot for the playoffs, that's not enough. That is not enough, in my opinion. The goal from ownership should be to bring a championship to Jacksonville. And I think he should have expanded on that answer a little bit. Because if their goal is legitimately just to shoot for the playoffs, they're never going to win a title. And if his goal is just to shoot for the playoffs, I can understand why Trent Baalke is the general manager. I mean, he has put together a roster that should be close to the playoffs and the playoff mix every year. I told y'all yesterday, I think that the roster put together this year was poorly managed and poorly coached. I honestly believe they should have been competing for a playoff spot with better coaching. And we've talked about different ways they could have had better coaching. In-game management, inability to run the football, blown assignments on defense. And I'm not saying Trent Baalke put together a perfect roster because, again, I said I think they were in a position to compete for the playoffs. I think he horribly mismanaged the cornerback position. I think that whatever happened with Eric Armstead, who apparently is moving back, there was opportunities for Trent Baalke to do a better job putting together this roster. And given the resources that he has had to work with, which again is an unlimited budget thanks to Shad Khan, the salary cap is not created equally. Owners that are willing to spend the way Shad Khan is willing to spend give their general manager a massive advantage year over year when it comes to the ability to sign big-time free agents, to sign lots of free agents, right? Shad Khan gives Trent Baalke that ability. And then you talk about Trent Baalke has selected in four drafts so far for Trent Baalke in Jacksonville, right? 2021, 22, 23, 24. He's had the top pick in 2 of those drafts. This is a football team that should be closer to where the Lions are than to a team that's just competing to make the playoffs, right? Trent Baalke has been given an unbelievable amount of resources. I don't think he has managed them super well, but he has done enough for this team to be competing for the playoffs. Now, you get into the playoffs, I don't think that they have, unless Trevor Lawrence just gets on an incredible heater, maybe the offensive coaching structure is much improved. I don't think the roster looks like a roster that should be competing with the Chiefs, the Bills, the Ravens, etc. But maybe with better coaching, you could get closer to that point. Bottom line, though, is for me, shooting for the playoffs is not enough. It's not enough. I mentioned it, Shad had a good answer about the offense being too predictable. I still think when it comes to football and building something that works, he just doesn't really get it. He was acting as if he had no clue, no understanding as to why folks are talking about, having more vertical alignment or versus horizontal alignment between the head coach and general manager. He was acting like he had no idea why having a lame duck GM helping you hire a head coach on a new contract. When I say lame duck GM, the reports are that this is going to be Trent Baalke's last year of his deal. Why it doesn't make sense to have an expiring contract GM hiring a new head coach. Why it could potentially make more sense to have a general manager and a head coach on the same exact timeline. He was acting as if those questions were silly. And he was kind of ducking the cleaning house questions. People weren't asking him to get rid of the medical staff and the trainers. And he knew exactly what people meant when they were asking about cleaning house, which was front office and coaching staff. But he wanted to duck those questions and kind of belittle those questions a little bit, which I found disappointing. And again, I just don't really think he gets it from a real NFL football building a program perspective. And again, having two guys who are on a horizontal organizational chart, right? General manager and head coach next to each other, both reporting up to the owner, versus a head coach reporting to a GM, reporting to an owner, versus a GM reporting to a head coach, reporting to an owner, whatever it may be. That does not work unless those two people that are horizontally aligned are actually fully aligned in their vision and goals for the football team. And I think that you have seen time and time again that has not been the case, as Trent Baalke has gotten Jim Harbaugh fired in a power struggle, got Chip Kelly fired, Jim Tomsula fired, Urban Meyer basically fired himself, but now Doug Peterson. There is a repeated history of this continuing to happen over and over and over again. And yes, Trent Baalke, early on in his general managing career, had some success. Since then, there has been very little sustained success. And so I struggle to see how this is going to work out. And you talk to people that have worked with him, that no longer work with him. Not a lot of fans. Not a lot of fans out there. I think that Trent Baalke being the Jaguars general manager is a mistake. I don't think that the Jaguars will have Super Bowl level success. Again, unless Trevor Lawrence just carries them, which is possible. I don't think that the Jaguars will be a year in and year out winner with consistency with Trent Baalke. And I hope I'm wrong. I really hope I'm wrong. I hope he proves me wrong. Hope he still has those clowns on his desk and he's trying to, fight it out and build a Super Bowl team. And I hope he does. I hope I'm wrong about this. I just don't see it. I don't see how that was your best path forward. Those are my top takeaways from this press conference. Really appreciate y'all tuning in. If you enjoy the content, please like, comment, subscribe. Again, let me know what you think about this in the comment section below. And y'all have a good one.